Hey folks, it's RBB. It's been a little bit. I'm definitely going to change up the way I post things. I was in the summer making about a video a day and then just posting them one after another. So I had, 30 something, 40 something videos right at one after another and then nothing for a couple of months around my teaching schedule. That's kind of crazy. So I apologize for that. And what I'm going to do is no matter how many videos I manage to record, I'll try and release them once a week so that it keeps more of a consistent flow instead of 40 in a row and then nothing for 2 months. So anyway, moving forward, what I want to talk about today in Photoshop is making patterns. And we talked about making your own brushes. And now we're going to talk about making custom patterns, fill patterns, kaleidoscopy looking patterns, tileable patterns, all that kind of stuff. Now, we've talked in the past about making a tileable texture. And a tileable texture was where we opened up an image of some beach rocks and then we used the filter and the offset and made it so that those images would tile, so that if we took one of it, two of it, three of it, four of it, it would look like a continuous pattern without any edges like Minecraft. So if you want to know how to make a tileable texture, go back and look at that video. We won't go over that. We're going to talk today about how to make patterns, not textures. So the difference is Photoshop wants to work with its patterns. It wants them to be a PAT file, and it doesn't let you save as a PAT file, which is pretty goofy, but we're going to look at how to get around that. So let's say we make a pattern. We've got this, I did a 500 by 500 pixel square, and in the past we made a, we learned how to make a brush. We did a brush preset this way. So if I wanted to make a brush preset, let's go ahead and do this in black. If I wanted to create a brush, you remember we made something simple. I think we made like clouds. Okay, there we go. That's gorgeous. I want to make that into a brush. We went up to edit, define brush preset. That's my new brush. I can call it smiley face. If I say okay, there's my new smiley face brush. Great. Awesome. That's really what we want to do. But hey, that looks kind of neat. Let's say this is our patterns. I'm going to get rid of this ridiculous brush. Boop. Okay. Let's say this is a pattern we want more than a brush. So instead of saving as a brush preset, now it's got this one little weird red dot. So it's kind of, what's her name? Cruella de Vil, little red in there. This time I'm going to go to edit and define pattern. So instead of brush preset, which will save it as a brush, it's going to save it as a pattern. So define pattern, call this whatever I want. I'll call this Cruella and say, okay. So what happens is, doesn't look like it really particularly did anything, but it saves it in its pattern folder. And you're like, well, where in the world would I find patterns? Well, if you remember, sometimes we have over here our color swatches, gradients, patterns, libraries, and a lot of times I just throw them away. But if I'm working with patterns, then I care. So here we go. I went over to my patterns window, and if that's not open or you can't find it, don't forget that you can find any window or tool under the Windows tab. So I could come to patterns and turn it on right there. So here's my patterns, and you can see that here is the new pattern I just made. Okay, so I did one a few minutes ago before I was recording, and it looked like this. It was just some dots, and I just said define pattern, and there it is saved over here in my custom patterns for today. You can get way down the rabbit hole and make, cool custom patterns that you want to make into t-shirts. You can sell what are they called? Digital assets, wallpapers, tileable textures. Like there are whole industries of people that make these patterns. Okay, so you can really get down a rabbit hole and have fun with this. But it's as simple as creating an interesting pattern and then saving it as a pattern. So here's, it doesn't have to be black and white. Here's a horribly blinding thing that I made, and I can say edit, define pattern. This one's called aneurysm. Aneurysm, I think I'm going to spell that right. Wrong, whatever. Okay, there we go. Now I have a new pattern over here called aneurysm. Great. So what Photoshop has done is it has saved it in its CC, in the CC libraries as a PAT. Now you might say, well, RBB, can I just go up myself? Like, couldn't I just flatten this image and go up to File and Save As or Export As? Somebody got their panties in a knot one time because I saved as instead of export as. Get over yourself. However you want to do it is fine. If I go to Save As, it's not going to give me a PAT option, which is kind of weird. So I want to define it as a brush preset, and it kind of does it under the hood. So great. We can make a million brushes. Whoop-de-doo. What are we going to do with that? Okay, I'm not brushes, a million patterns. What we can do is, I made this lumpy little heart guy right here. And let's say I want to fill this in. Now we can use masks and all kinds of other techniques, but let's say I very quickly want to fill this in with, I don't know, blood splatters or some pattern that I've made. I can grab another pattern. I can bring in an image over here, put it on top, create a clipping mask, lots of different ways to do it, but that seems tedious to me. So let's say I just want to fill in this heart with one of these patterns that I made. First of all, I want to select it. Now there's a million different selection ways to do this too. The easiest one that I'm going to do is this heart is by itself on its own layer with nothing else there. So if I hold down Control and click in the thumbnail, it will select just what's in that layer. Okay, now I want to fill it. Now fill, the hotkey for fill is F5, or if you forget, you can always go up to edit and down to fill. We did this before when we like filled in the background and stuff. And I can choose different things, black, white, gray, color, all kinds of stuff, content aware. In this case, I'm going to do pattern. And when it says, well, what pattern do you want? There's all the patterns that we just made and defined as PAT. So let's grab this crazy aneurysm one here. And we can choose how it's going to fill in. If we have nothing selected here, it will just fill in tileable, just one right on top of each other, all lined up. Or we can do one of these different types of fills, spiral, symmetry fill, brick fill, so it'll have different offsets. I'm just going to have it just plain old tile, okay? And when I say okay, it fills it in, okay, with that pattern. Tiled them. Doot, 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 doot. Okay, if I had done brick fill, these would be offset or spiral or whatever fill I want to. So boom, super easy. There we go. There's my texture filled in. So what else can you do with this? Why do we care? Let's say you have another image, and like I painted this, I just digitally painted this apple, and I painted it in on 50% gray just to be, you know, artsy fartsy there. And I want to create a different background for that. I want to, maybe it's a portrait of somebody and I want them to be on a different background than the picture where they took it. I can remove the background and I can put another image in, and I'd have to worry about edges and all that kind of good stuff. We're going to make it even easier. I'm going to simply make a new layer. Okay, this whole layer, I'm just going to do Control A to select that whole layer. Let's go ahead and name it so we're working non-destructively, and I'll call it my fill layer. And I know before y'all get bunched up, there are other ways to make a fill layer. Just remember, this is for generally kind of newbies. I can double click on one of these, or I can go back up to fill. So if I grab one of these guys, okay, boom, there's my awesome background, which was so much better than the one before. Not really, okay, but easy peasy. I can put any one of these patterns in the background. Okay, this is a tileable pattern. Here's my aneurysm pattern. Okay, any pattern that I want. Here's my dotty pattern we just made. Okay, very easy, very quick to replace the background and make a fill pattern. Now, here's another way to make patterns. Let's say that you're working like this and you're like, man, I really like this apple. I want this apple to be a pattern. There is an app, an Adobe app called Capture, and it's not a desktop app, but it works really nicely with Photoshop. Look, there's some transparency. I can see the dots. Interesting. Excuse me. And what Capture does is allow you to take an image like this, or anything that your camera can see, and make a pattern out of it, a graphic out of it, a color scheme out of it, and we're going to look at how to do that. Now, I could simply select an area of my screen, and I'm going to hold down Shift to make a perfect square, okay, just because I like the squares. And right there in that square, I could go to Edit, Define, Brush, Preset, and it would make, let's go ahead and do it. I'm going to do Define Pattern. Okay, this is my Apple 1. And now Apple 1 is a new pattern, but we already knew how to do that. You said you're going to teach us something new. I am. If you go over to your libraries, okay, or if you open up Windows and choose Libraries, if it's not open over here, down at the bottom is a little plus icon. And this plus icon, when you open it, one of the things it'll give you is extract from image. And you see this Ka next to it. That's Capture. That's Adobe Capture. So check this out. If I say open from Capture, it's going to open the Capture. This is what it looks like on your phone. Okay, it looks pretty much exactly like this. And what's so awesome about Capture is here's my image. And what I can do with this is I can choose, let's see, let's do a new, whoops, not that. I'm going to take, let's see, now I'm confusing myself. Oops, sorry, a little bit of an abrupt switch there. So I put another pattern behind this little apple guy here. And let's say I want to make this into an apple, into a pattern, which we sort of talked about. Okay, so I'm going to select this guy and I'm going to edit and define pattern, which I already did. Okay, so there's my new pattern. So when we talk about Capture, how Capture works is, like I said, if you go to your libraries here, and let's go ahead and open up, let's say, a new layer. So I just opened up a file, I think it's like 10 by 10, and basically put the picture on here as one image. If we go to my libraries and say right here, extract from image, it's going to use one of those patterns that Capture has selected, and this is what it looks like, okay? And there's my image right here. And you can see that I can, first of all, move this around, and it makes this awesome kaleidoscope looking pattern. Okay, make it look like whatever you want to. I can also choose different types of layers, different types of patterns. Okay, I can make this guy a little bit bigger. Okay. I can choose these types of different guys, move them all around. It's pretty much this awesome kaleidoscope out of anything, really, okay? So it's hard to tell this was even necessarily an apple to start with, but let's say there we go. For whatever reason, that's what I love. There's a tiled one. Yeah, I want to keep it in my colors, okay? Now, when I save this to my CC libraries, it will save to wherever I want to create this. So see, mine are called patterns from Capture. That's the library they're saved in. And you can see that it instantly saved over here to this pattern. So this is now another pattern that I can just dump into the background. But that's not all, okay? Because maybe you're like, I don't really like these kaleidoscopy type things. We can also choose something like color themes. So just this, by taking this one image, which it doesn't have to be a pattern, it could be any image. I can take a picture of something in the Capture app, and I can move this around and create basically a color menu, like a color, what do we call it, pantry, color library of this work. This is sort of like the color scheme. And I can save that color scheme too. So you can see it captured another color scheme right there. I could save it as a gradient. I can choose different areas from this image to create a gradient. Okay, within my color pattern, my color scheme. Okay, maybe I like that, which for whatever reason, I don't really, but let's say I did. Love it. I can even choose how many gradient stops there are. So I can have extras, 3 or 4 different stops. Save to libraries, and guess what? That will save over in my gradients as well. So amazing. Capture can also, if I'm looking at an image that has writing, I can select the type, I can select the font in the image, and it will give me the closest Adobe font to that. So if you want to see something that looks the most like, say, your handwriting or a sign you see, you can take a picture of it on your phone, open up Adobe Capture, use this type tool, and it'll say, hey, these are the fonts that are closest to that font you want to use. So patterns, shape is, again, super cool. This basically will make oh, that was cool. It's like the moon. It will make a vector image of the picture that it's looking at. So I can choose whether to smooth it and do all kinds of stuff to it. But when I save it, this will be also saved as one of my shapes, because shapes are another one of the things you can open up here, shapes. And this is a vector so that I can make this as big or small as I want to. And it's black and white, so I can use it as a template. Again, it's like a Fresco. I can't say enough about how cool all these apps are that work together. So just by making this image in Photoshop and creating it as a pattern, then I could open it up in my libraries and use Capture to quickly grab these color themes. And all of these programs work together and sync automatically so that if I were to switch and start using this on my cell phone, my libraries would be there. If you remember in Fresco, when you create a drawing or something in Fresco, it automatically saves it in your CC library so that if you open up Photoshop, those drawings are there. You can work with this same sort of everything's connected idea. And remember when we did layer styles? Let's find something we can do with layer styles here. Let's do this one here. Layer styles. If I double click here and open up this layer styles, and we did bevel and emboss. Remember we did all this before? We've done this. Okay, created sort of a 3D looking shape. That's great. One of our options here, remember, is pattern overlay. And in the past, we only had whatever Photoshop had given us. But we can put in any texture that we want, any pattern that we created. So remember, this looked really cool on fonts. So if I were to create, say, my name or my signature, I could have my signature or whatever fill in with a pattern of my choice, like paint splatters or cracks or whatever. There's really kind of no end to what you can do here. And you're not trapped in one thing. If one program doesn't do what you want, switch around. But between Adobe Fresco, which is free, and Adobe Capture, which is on your app, on your phone, there's so much you can do to quickly grab those things, bring them into Photoshop, and create endless patterns. And as I said, there's whole industries. You can make a living just making patterns for textiles, for stickers, for wallpaper, for wrapping paper. And there's, I think what it's called, Global Imaging something or other. It's a conference that happens every year in New York. And this is where people like Target and Walmart and wherever purchase those patterns to make the next bedspreads they're making or whatever. So yeah, so I wouldn't underestimate the use of patterns. And if nothing else, it's just kind of fun. Make your own wrapping paper. All right, well, I hope that was helpful and not too chaotic. As I said, it's been a hot minute. I was doing a video a day, and now it's been 2 months. So yeah, maybe I'll do this one again later and make it less awkward. But for now, hey, that's what we got. So you guys be well, and I'll see you next time.